Evening all.
My mic is doing a thing. Device.
Evening.
Hold on one second. Didn't want to happen was my mic deciding to die right now.
We can hear you in the Discord.
Yeah, we can hear you fine.
I'm just glad it's not me for once that's having technical difficulties.
Don't jinx it. Maybe wait for that to settle, huh?
Didn't my mic properly. There you go, everyone. I'm back.
Cable thing.
Yeah, it turns out I should have. It turns out what I should have done is plugged in my cable correctly. Who could have guessed that that would be a problem? I almost put the technical difficulties image up as a point of principle. Hi everyone, welcome. We're doing a stream. We were meant to be talking about the video I did for YouTube so that you guys could ask me questions about it, and but it has unfortunately become rather topical in that way that all of my streams end up being. And well, we're going to talk about the video mostly, but we might link it to some other things and have a bit of fun with it, because who knows who is watching us on this stream? Who can say? And so but I will remind people that this stream has a minimum height requirement, and so make of that what you will. I've moved the swan box. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let my guests introduce themselves, and then we'll start talking about the video. I'll do a bit of an opening bit about the video because there are some questions everyone keeps asking, and so I'll address those first. Then we'll talk about the content of the video, and yeah. So we'll go from Elijah, and then we'll go down to John, then to Geraint.
Evening, I'm Elijah. I am one of the many members of Podcasting is Praxis. You can find us at PraxisCast. I have a Twitch channel that I'm currently planning some things for, so it's not active at the moment, but it will be. And I am at the moment, online-only music teacher. If you would like to learn theory or guitar, you can give me a shout. And I have a music podcast where people who don't listen to pop music listen to pop music.
Someone like me, maybe.
React to it. And the next episode is going to have a very special guest on. I wonder who that might be.
You could say. All right, John. A man who needs no introduction, but I'll let him make one anyway.
Sure. Yeah, I'm John, at John Duncan on Twitter. I'm a PhD researcher studying neoliberalism, which I think is relevant to this topic today. And I run a YouTube channel called John the Duncan, where I talk about, left politics and human rights and neoliberalism, and that's all that's interesting about it.
That's still a lot of stuff. Geraint, introduce yourself. You've been on recently, so people might remember.
Yes, yeah. If your memory extends back a whole week, so I'm Geraint, aka Wariotifo. I'm one of the hosts of the Reel Politik podcast and a long-time chronicler of centrist dangers on Twitter in particular. I was on last week with some of the other lads from Reel Politik discussing the wonderful Gapecast things we do. But today, this is more just for eviscerating melts, which is always fun.
Yeah, always a good one. So I'm gonna address some questions that kept coming up in my chat throughout this week that were from people who were not trying to pick big fights with me. first of all, how long did it take to make the video? It took about, well, it was a day. It was like an hour and a half of shooting video, but it was about 2 days of writing, 1 day of editing, and like 20 minutes to make the badge for the fake doctor. If anyone was wondering how long that took, and maybe St. Brendan's Hospital's t-shirts coming soon, who can say? The other thing is, I'm going to open with the news that you will want. Yes, there is going to be another video, and it's going to be about... I'm torn on the title, which is like Echo Chambers, how do they work? Or Echo Chambers, good actually, question mark. We'll see. We'll see which one I land on.
Echo Chambers, how do they work? And put an image of the Insane Clown Posse as the thumbnail. That's it.
Okay, great. Well, the decision has been made live on stream. There you go.
And echoes. You say something and then nothing says it back to you? Fucking insane, man.
Yeah, I know.
We're on Joe Rogan to talk about this.
And, yeah, so the reason I invited John and Geraint is, as they mentioned, they are incredibly qualified to talk about this topic, but they also got to see the script in the before times, after I hacked out like half of it, but before I wrote a final version of it. And yeah, their notes were very helpful, and I wanted to thank them in person on the stream, even though I thanked them in the video, and thank my partner, who insisted I add many graphics to help her understand the video, which is why you got like Tonti as a worshipper of corn on that video. And I invited Elijah because he loves the camera. He can't resist the camera, and also he likes Duncan on melts. The question we all want the answer to from yesterday's stream: have you phoned your mum yet? I told my mother, I texted my mother today saying I would have called, but unfortunately I was too busy trying not to die of hysterical laughter from some of the stuff I was getting in my DMs today. So
the answer to that is no, you haven't called your mother.
No, I haven't. And if my mum is in the chat, she will know that I'm very sorry, but I'm her way too busy, way too busy son.
What level of boring dystopia is it that a mother can only contact her son through her Twitch chat? Like, that's...
But yes, but thank you, Ferrosol, for demonstrating the thing that I always forget to demonstrate at the start of the streams, which is how to ask a question. You click on the coin with the face of Tony Blair on it, you click on ask a question, and you ask, as an example, like this. Let me just type it out for you all. And, you could ask a question like that, if you like. I'm not saying that you have to ask that question. I'm just saying, I'm just, as an example. It's not, I'm not talking about anyone in particular. Also, hello to Juliet Jakes, friend of the stream. And friend of most of our shows and YouTube channels, I think. But yeah, John actually gave me some of my best corrections because he wrote a lot of them, and so, and not in a bad way either. And I enjoyed John correcting me on why the SNP don't seem to have aggro-centrists, and writing a massive screed about the SNP in the notes, which was like entirely why I gave the script to him, because I made the briefest possible mention of the SNP because they are different. It's different. Scotland is different, as I make the point on the stream many times. It is different and strange and alien to me, and so I wanted to get at least one Scottish person to tell me why I was wrong, and he did.
I didn't even I don't even remember what I said, but I do remember thinking, this is way too much detail for a fucking minor point.
Yeah, so like, the point was like a couple of sentences, and you wrote like a paragraph back to me, which was a very good paragraph. It's just like, I was just like, okay, I'll just change it then.
I'm sure we'll have stuff to talk about. I was one of the vile cybernats that a lot of the shitty tabloid approaches talked about, and that was, in a Scottish context, a big sort of, I think, industry of crybullying, which was a large...
That was a section in the video, in fact.
Of your video, yes. It was it was interesting. I'm sure we'll get to the different dynamics.
I actually mentioned Scotnat, the Cybernats in the video briefly but it was not the main point of the thing. So I was like, yes, this is a thing. I know it happened during the indie ref. I'm aware. A lot of my writing was defensive against because half of my audience is Scottish, and I'm like, no, I know you exist. I'm just trying to write a thing for a specific context.
Silenced by the unionist conspiracy yet again.
Yeah, you hate to see it. But yeah, if you're wondering, the bit at the start, I immediately thought of a better bit straight after I published the video, and it will be in the next video. But I need to get my voiceover voice ready. It's like, has this ever happened to you? And just go from there. Anyway, so I need to remember what my sections of the video were. So hold on, I need to get the script up actually, real quick. Also, I called it Diagnosing Aggro-Centrism because I was married to the gimmick that I came up with, so I just completely lent into that.
But it was good. You started with taxonomies.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So it was I gave a brief introduction, which is
guy. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was like, "Who are the Aggro-Centrists?" And so I basically, as someone pointed out to me, oh, you could have talked about how the Lib Dems constantly picking, the worst leader is just the final defeat of Kennedy's section of liberals. I'm like, I know that. I just had a limited amount of time, and I don't want to talk about the Lib Dems, because let's be real, who wants to talk about the Lib Dems?
I don't even think the Lib Dems are, the most aggro of the aggro-centrists anyway. It's a kind of different thing.
My point was, any aggro-centrists who are in the Lib Dems are not aggro-centrists because they're Lib Dems. They're aggro-centrists for the other reasons, right? Yeah. The pro-EU, FBPE, brain poisoning reasons, mostly.
I found, at least in Scotland, the Lib Dems are almost heartwarming because they'll try to be as, viciously aggressive about their shitty centrist liberalism, but they can't really put their heart into it that much. They're so non-committal about everything. They can't even be, properly shitty about what they purport to believe, which I always find quite funny. It's kind of cute. You're trying to be abusive right now, but you're not. It was like the time Stone Toss tried to get a pile on me, and I got some DMs, and it was people going, "The artwork for your podcast sucks." Someone called me the F word, and they censored it in the DM, and I was
that's brilliant.
That's so good. I didn't even get any nasty DMs yesterday. I feel kind of left out. I just hate to see it, really. I even turned off my quality filters. Nothing. They've gone soft.
Yeah, just begging for someone to abuse you, but no one's there.
I am literally courting it at this point. Yeah.
I keep trying to get massive flag shagger unionist Twitter mad at me because it's great for numbers, right? That they're completely awful. I just want replies full of Union Jack flags and fucking laugh cry emojis, but they never bite. And I think it's because I'm not an ethnic minority or a woman, at least not visibly. They might consider Jewish, but I'm not a visible non-white person, so they never bite. But every account I can think of that does some kind of Scottish cultural output on Twitter that's been brigaded by George Galloway types and bald, angry.
God, I love that George Galloway is still a thing. That's great.
Yeah. Bored, bald football fans has ended up getting shitloads of followers because they're so disgusting about it, and everyone sympathizes with who they're piling onto.
Yeah,
but it hasn't happened. They're just not fighting.
Todd made a point, which is you're not Ash Sarkar or Owen Jones. It was actually Owen Jones complaining about this that made me want to do the video. Because he was like, every time I tweet about something, there are a bunch of centrists who come in and start bashing me and defending the right. And I'm like, yes, that's because, and I wanted to make this clear that aggro-centrism is a thing, a capital T thing. It's an actual distinct thing. And I wanted to present it that way as best I could in the time that I had on the video. And I don't know, I feel like I managed to do a good job of making that case. I don't know that I did it completely. I didn't have enough time really to do it, I don't think. I wrote too much. But the first serious substantive section was just the Change UK, the cucks. That was it's the only time they've ever been treated seriously by anyone, was by me.
Can we just Before we move on, can we just say congratulations to Chucka Money for his new position at JP Morgan? That's real great.
Yeah, we're happy for him.
Yeah.
And so, basically, the Change UK section was basically just an excuse for me to dunk on the pro-EU position, which is, the how's Lexit going type of aggro-centrism that you will get. And I'm like, well, they at least got the exit component of it, so I don't know, man. Like, I don't know. But I really wanted to just throw in a bunch of Mike Gapes clips, basically. That was the whole point of that section, really, of treating them. But they are distinct. Like we mentioned the Lib Dems earlier. The aggro-centrist Lib Dems are not aggro-centrist because they're Lib Dems. It was because they were pro-EU, people who were losing their mind. Or they were, like, recently ex-Labour people, like the Alistair Campbell types who got himself kicked out for publicly admitting that he didn't vote for Labour, which is a clever, big-brained move, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. I do have an attempted diagnosis of this, which is that when the Harpers Letter about cancel culture came out, one of the questions that I was dealing with was why? What is the purpose for this, right? What's the political sort of progress that's being attempted to be made here? And I think what I got to was that it's an attempt at reclaiming the global superiority of like neoliberal, status quo, centrist, Clintonism sort of politics. And if you tie that to people who used to be powerful in the sense that they were part of the milieu that controlled the national political discourse, right, or political cultural discourse, and have now found themselves sidelined by things like Corbynism or like the Bernie Sanders movement, it makes a lot more sense for them to be very, very aggressive about trying to reclaim that territory and stake that back out. The Lib Dems were never really in control of anything. So they don't have that same loss, right? Yeah. They don't have the same sort of anger about, no,
there's
this
no
is
grievance.
Mine. Yeah.
I did literally have a section that I had to cut, which was like describing them as a politics of grievance and trying to make the case that this... But I ended up just sort of integrating that into other bits of the script because it was getting very, very long. You people don't know how quickly I can write and how much I write.
I think that isn't exactly right. What Elijah was saying, that like that's part of the reason why they're so like angry and why this particular group are so angry. I think the other side of it is for the FBPE, the European, the EU folks. The reason they're so angry is for the first time in a long time, politics was actually affecting them in a very real way, rather than just being like a abstract debate. A game that they could, or like Chucka Money as a great avatar of, as like a career progression to something better. It was suddenly like an actually real thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And in fact, you made that note in my... So there's a section we will come to later, which I really, really wanted to expand on, which everyone knows I really wanted to expand on, I think, where you made that point in a note, which was like, this is the thing. You have described the thing, the problem, which is the civility section. We'll come to that a bit later, but like... I really wanted to talk about the fury, the fuming fury that comes from people who demand civility. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Wait, Geraint, what are your thoughts? Why are these people so angry? Go on, give us your thought.
Why are they so angry? I think, in short, there's often a lot of underlying shit to it, but I think, in general, they're used to either being in control politically or having the people they like being in control, depending on what sort of level they're at. And then you had a fairly quick 1-2 of Corbyn becoming leader of Labour and Brexit, and that combination really broke a lot of people. Well, some of them, of course, are only mad about one of those things or more mad about one of them. But so that 1-2 has really got a lot of people who might have been a bit annoying online before, a bit of a nuisance, go absolutely nuclear, and also something to rally around and find each other as well. So they build these little networks of dangers.
Yeah, in fact, you told me that I was missing from my taxonomy, like one of the main things, which was like the Harry's Place type of thing that I couldn't really figure out where to put that without getting weirdly specific.
They're a bit longer term, but they obviously, their thing is they are anti-Islamist. I'm doing the hand finger things right now. You can't see it, but that's their justification and their sort of rallying point. Trying to do it respectfully, but obviously not really trying to do it respectfully or fooling anyone. But they've obviously had longer to sort of embed themselves into the media and the public sphere, and it is a lot of the same people that have, obviously with Corbynism in particular, a lot of the attacks on it were either based on or were very angry about the idea that his foreign policy, more so than his domestic policy, might be very radical. And this is where they all got these paranoid fantasies about Stalin returning, is basically from Harry's Place. It used to be the fact, if you met any sort of reasonably veteran leftist in any context, if you were like, well, do they sound or not? They seem sound. You could Google their name, and one of the top results would be Harry's Place telling you they were a terrible person who supported terrorists. And that would usually be the point you'd be like, yeah, they're sound.
Elijah, you wanted to jump in?
I've been here for 10 years, right? I moved to the UK 10 years ago. I have never heard the terms Harry's Place and Eustonites brought up until this year. Until the past few months. What the fuck is it? Is it a blog?
I thought Harry's Place was a blog, right? Like,
yeah.
So what's the milieu? What's the social grouping here, or the historical one?
The broadly huge overlap between the two, like Euston Manifesto and Harry's Place. Euston Manifesto was like a post-September 11th declaration of like, we, the decent left, will stand up against terrorism and tyranny and stuff. Basically, they meant Muslims, right? Mm-hmm. And it was like people like Nick Cohen and that sort of centre-right people who've got like some left credentials from 20 years ago. A lot of columnists, a lot of very upper middle class, respectable, high society type people.
And this was a mainstream force. This was like a driving.
No, not really. It tried to be. It got a big launch.
Okay.
It got a huge launch. All the papers were covering it like fairly adoringly, but it never really caught on in that sense. Harry's Place was a bit more of like a, I'm not saying much here, but a slightly wider version of the same thing. It was hammering the same stuff, and it was based on, quite heavily influenced by a guy called Norman Geras, who was like a former left-winger who'd had a similar sort of ideological turn, and put an academic stuff about it. And it was basically a blog focusing on that, and it got more, it sort of built up a cult following and became crankier and crankier and crankier, basically supporting any sort of weird, oddball American anti-Muslim academic and stuff like the Henry Jackson society and things like that.
The name of that academic rings a bell, and I've just remembered where from. When John and I were sort of reviewing, the video will be out tomorrow, by the way, the Open Labour foreign policy pamphlet. That was the person they kept referring. Like,
oh dear.
Well, yeah.
Depending on when they're referring to him, that's not necessarily too bad. Like it's one of the more dramatic examples of like, I prefer his earlier work because he wasn't fucking in danger then.
The pamphlet was bad. I think I'm right in saying that.
Oh, the open yeah. It's open labour. So
yeah, it sounds like Holland syndrome. Someone whose brain was just completely broken by 9/11, and then you have this ongoing development towards the usual destinations.
Yes. Yeah, it was very much a London media sort of equivalent.
Mm-hmm. Cool, interesting. Thank you. Yeah. I was wondering, a blog? Why is this a thing that
Why do we care?
It's one of these things. Like it's died off in the last few years because they've all gone. After 15 years of hammering away via blogs and stuff like that, they've all gone mainstream and found each other on Twitter. Uh-huh. So it is people like Falcon Malteser, and that used to worship it when it was more active. So it's sort of come to bigger prominence in the sense you can sort of find the danger and trace them back, and they'll be like citing Harry's Place shit.
They have origin stories.
Yeah,
okay, cool.
Like
well, that explains a lot.
It's fucking glass, but for dangers.
Twitter characters are starting to get origin stories. This is getting dangerously out of control. Oh dear. But yeah, that was they probably would have gone between like my Progress Blairites and the FBPE lot, probably in the Progress Blairite lot, where most of what I talked about was how hilarious it is that they think Butch Shortstart is a real argument against the Iraq War, and like they are incredibly. This links back to the thing we said earlier, which a lot of the grief is over loss, basically loss of control, loss of status, loss of power, perceived power, or association with power. So you can think of Aggro-Centrism as like the anger stage of grief, if you like. And unfortunately for you all, the stage will never end. I got like the worst possible news for you all. It's never gonna end.
Pathologically terrified, they can't, because every time they do get into power, they're going to fail. And they'll blame it on not themselves and their unworkable policies and approach to politics, but an invented communist menace.
Yeah,
I mean, like their time, the sort of progress, as much as Biden might be evidence against this, but the sort of progressive neoliberalism of Blairism is dead, and it will never come back. Like, you're fucked in that sense if you're a agrocentrist.
Wow, that was a pretty harsh diagnosis right there. Like, not you're fucked. It's over.
Can you? I'm just glad we don't have to deal with people arguing that $600 plus $1,400 is the $2,000 that everyone was promised, and it's fine.
I feel like that's partly because our lot would never even countenance giving the money in the first place. Like, you know,
Biden is a savvier operator than Starmer. I've said this before. Like, Biden is at least doing the bare minimum of trying to fool the left, right? Of that recuperative effort that the American Democratic Party knows it kind of has to do. It has to keep voters on side, people who like Bernie Sanders, people who like AOC. It has to, bring them back into the party machinery. And Starmer doesn't seem to realize that it's bad politics, even if you like from the perspective of his own ideology, right? It's bad. It's wrong. It's not going to work.
Also, like, if you have them in house, you can steal some of their less offensive to you ideas that might actually work. Who knows? That's what I'd fucking do. Like,
On the other hand, we don't have to have interminable conversations about whether this one sort of lefty MP is a traitor or is actually good. Like, we don't have British AOC discourse.
Yeah. Oh, but we do. It's just not that kind of discourse.
Jess Phillips.
British I've heard some incredible names sort of cited as the British AOC.
I actually think Keir Starmer is the British AOC.
I think so. Yeah.
Do you remember when
I think Jim Murphy? He's coming back.
Yeah.
Do you remember when Chucka did that spread in Italian GQ? And he wanted to be called the British Obama.
Oh my god!
Oh, I remember that.
He'd been pushing that so hard.
Yeah,
like
he tried to coin it himself, the British Obama.
Which, by the way, fair play. I too have tried to coin my own nicknames. They just don't stick.
You can't going around the playground and trying to get everyone to call you the British Obama is just the fucking saddest thing in the world. Like,
it's utterly Seinfeld. It's my nickname will be T-Bone. Coco the monkey.
Okay, so
a fun thing to do. Fun thing to do is just to seriously give you a sincere view that the closest thing we've got to a British AOC is Zara Sultana. Just politely say that in response to someone suggesting someone else, and watch them absolutely freak out.
Yeah, that I died. You know what? I've invited enough trouble this week. So. Since he's been mentioned, on Chucker, what is everyone's favourite conspiracy theory as to why he dropped out of the Labour leadership race in 2015? Well, there's the commonly known conspiracy theory that I don't know whether it's true or not, so, that there was material about him and his, him potentially being bisexual or not. I don't know if that's true, and that's...
I thought it was a BDSM club.
I mean, either way, fine, right? Like, I don't care. I don't think anyone cared.
Yeah, these would be the least bad things about him.
Yeah, if he was either bisexual or into BDSM or both, it would have been fine. It would have meant he still lost the leadership election, but maybe that was what he was figuring out. To be fair,
So the question then is he a top or a bottom? I think his head would fit very smoothly into a gimp mask. You know, just
Do not Photoshop that image for me. I do not want to see it.
One time, I almost accidentally walked into a gimp party in Edinburgh.
I'm trying to imagine what Edinburgh BDSM sounds like.
It was incredible. I was out on a night out with one of my friends, and we were like, it was like middle of winter, so we were wearing like big woolly jumpers, and we were just deep in conversation after being at a pub. We went up to this pub in Cowgate, and the bouncer just looked at us funny and went, "Sorry guys, private party tonight." And then my friend was like, he was getting kind of like pissy with it. It was like, "Oh, you don't have to be rude about it. You could have just like said it was said normally." And the guy was like, "I didn't think I would have to say it was a private party." And he gestured behind him to like 20 gimps just looking at us like we were weirdos.
Oh, there we go. It's the Ian Murray Loyal Supporters Club.
Oh, for goodness sake, we're gonna have to burn the VOD again 2 nights in a row.
I meant a different, not famous at all Ian Murray, just a random bloke who lives in Edinburgh. There's a lot of them about.
Just think of the buffet.
Oh, yeah. I'm actually quite hungry, so that was not a great thing to say to me right now.
This barbecue smells funny.
Yeah. I think alright, so my final like bit of the taxonomy was like the soft left, who I did not talk about for a long time on purpose because I can't be dealing with this shit, basically. Like, I don't want to get yelled at by anyone, which apparently is not a wish I can ever have fulfilled any week of my life. BDSM all-you-can-eat buffet is an incredibly powerful idea. But yeah, I basically treated the soft left of Labour like a semi-permeable membrane with centrism because I was like, I can't be bothered to explain it in any more complicated way. Some of them are centrist, some of them aren't, and some of them move between in and out. That, you know, yeah. I don't know. And it depends on the issue. A lot of them are very, as we discovered from that pamphlet, not great on some foreign policy.
It's the closest we have to like a narco-Bidenist. You know, people who use a lot of left-wing imagery and they hit all the right talking points, and then they will, with a straight face, argue that the best way to achieve this is to make common cause with the Labour right.
Do you remember the anarcho-syndicalist Blairite account? Who remembers that one? Oh dear. Discord did the thing. Sorry, everyone. Give me 1 second. I hope you enjoy the...
Post-hog.
Sorry, everyone. Do not post hog. I am warning you not to post hog on this stream.
I can't believe how many libels we fitted into that 10 seconds when Cinnamon was gone. That's
yeah, it
incredible.
Was impressive. Semi-centrist
We're definitely getting arrested.
Is a suggestion. Yeah, sure. But yeah, the anarcho-syndicalist who was a Blairite, which is one of my favourite like combinations of ideologies that has ever occurred.
So good. It's a beautiful piece of posting, that.
Yeah, I mean, if it was a bit, it would be one of the best bits of all time. So, I don't know.
Council communism, but with PFI.
Oh god! I'm just trying to imagine how that would work, and I'm just like, I'm gonna start bleeding out of my ears into my headphones trying to figure this one out.
To my knowledge,
does anyone remember the account Blair Supporter? I think it's gone obscure now, but it was like an anti-Corbyn account before Corbyn, if that makes sense. It was like full-time hardline Blairite, and he would add people to lists, you know, the lists you can get on Twitter, and he had like 10 of them, and he was like Mad Men, lefty trolls, Iraq haters, Iraq denialists, and all this.
Iraq
and there was one that was like
they denied the war.
Like, yeah, they denied it was good.
What is
that
one
about,
that was like
very unbalanced
and making lists?
Yeah, I know, but one of them was like very unbalanced Blair haters, and I was so angry because he like added me to all his other lists, but not that one. I was trying so hard to get officially classified as a very unbalanced Blair hater, which at the time was 100% like factual, but couldn't pull it off.
So I will, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
That
sounds
like
eventually like. Sorry?
That sounds like Robbie Travers' alt account.
Close. Eventually I got I got on his bad side by rebranding to like Blair supporter, but like Lionel Blair, and adding him to like very unbalanced Blair haters for not celebrating Lionel Blair. But there was a rumor going around for a long, long time that this was John Rentoul's alt.
Oh my god, please.
And someone at some point, I can't remember the specifics of this, but someone had found like some slightly weird grammatical error or phrasing of a phrase that Blair supporter had used, and like the only person that ever used it on Twitter that showed up on a public Twitter search was John Rentoul. So it was something someone had made up as a joke to start with. Oh, it sounds like Rentoul's alt, and like we all became convinced it actually was. It's
suspiciously like keen details about 15th century Eastern Europe.
Yeah, he has very detailed accounts of meeting Mehmet the Conqueror. A friend of the stream, John Rentoul, who always seems to enjoy replying to me and being humiliated. So, and look, John, if you're watching this, I know that some centrists do enjoy watching this stream, apparently. If you're watching this, you should at least pay me for the privilege these days. I mean, really, look, I gotta pay rent, man. I got Satanism button shirts to sell, but like, you know... It's just I love these alts. I love all of the alts, and how there was the famous alt, of course, that was a She-Ra character who posted incredibly unhinged things. And again, this is under the umbrella of Aggro-Centrism, and we thought it was a former MP. That was our suspicion of who that was.
Oh, was that Heodora or something?
Yeah, that's the one.
Nasty fuckers.
Like,
I mean, man, you get drawn into things against your will.
Yeah.
Because of the relentless shithousery, and especially if you're like Jewish to an extent, you know, it's not something I ever gave a shit about. But they're so nasty about it. You have to respond. You have to take a stand. And I feel bad because I don't want to get dragged down to their level, right? You don't want to get dragged into the muck. And by the way, congratulations for showing everyone exactly how to deal with someone attempting that, Sinan.
Oh yeah, thank you.
Yeah, fucking walk right there.
I've done it.
At the gatehouse.
I have, it's well known, had to deal with this on more than one occasion, so, and the bark is often much worse than the bite, and so even if you rock up to my stream, I will be unfazed, because you are not in charge of the stream, I am in charge of the stream, which makes it incredibly easy for me to do what I did last night. I might specifically cut out the bit with my mum and the bit with the guest of honor, who was not my mum last night, and I might share that with some friends on an unlisted YouTube video. So that might be what's happening, and because you did not want to miss last night's stream. Apologies to anyone who did. It was amazing. I had a wonderful time, but. I was, oh god, I'm trying to think now. John, the ridiculous accounts that we had to deal with, and just getting pulled into it. Will I be selling clips? No, this is not that kind of stream or website. Just to be very clear.
Swap.avi, but it's just that clip.
FFF, they didn't mention you by name. You hate to see it. You see, you got to be like the big name king shit poster like me to be like atted from behind the block. Which, as we all know, is the way that you would get my attention, is to at me from behind the block. Maybe I'll talk about how funny this was now, because I was at the dentist when it all kicked off, and I was like, I suppose I was getting my teeth polished by my hygienist as it all kicked off, and I'm not checking my phone. And I come home and I'm freezing, and I got a DM, lots of DMs, as you might imagine, from people. And the first one I opened was from Nas, who's on the stream sometimes, and it was like, "Are you doing all right? I just saw the nasty post." And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" I just found out I'd been the main character when I wasn't even there. I didn't even get to enjoy it.
Living your best life with someone else's hands in your mouth. I mean.
Maybe after the stream we'll talk about my trip to the dentist. It's not really what we want. A good time was had by all except the special guest. Well, that was rather the point of the stream, I suppose. Right. Okay. So that's the taxonomy section of the video done, which I thought I did quite well in. Note for improvement would probably be trying to make the point a bit quicker on some of these, because I did add a lot of waffle, because I am very insecure in my writing, and so we'll add a lot of stuff. But that's something Geraint and John will know more about than Elijah, because they got the sneak peek of the script.
I much enjoyed the video.
I
very much enjoy it.
Yeah,
and I'm an avid consumer.
Yeah, the feedback was pretty much universally positive, except for the one guy who obsessively downvotes all of my videos, downvoting it.
I did notice that when I was watching. I was like, oh, the one downvote.
Yeah, I really like whoever that is, though. I kind of appreciate that they're bothering with that.
Yeah, it's nice to inspire that degree of passion and commitment with people who fucking hate you. Like,
yeah, it's especially fun when you're as irrelevant as me that someone feels the need to just downvote my thing as a point of principle at this point. But yeah, so
one funny thing on that, people who have random hatreds. Tom Nicholas was talking about that the other day. How he's got a bunch of folk who follow his YouTube channel with the inexplicable desire to prove that he's not really English, and he's putting on a fake English accent.
But if he admitted he was English, he would have to be thrown in jail. So they've got him.
Yeah.
The only worse thing than being English is stealing English valor.
Yeah, you go. The problem was the performance, and I as you can tell, I'm not bad at performing. I just perform in a very specific format where I get to veer off in lots of directions and talk shit with people. I think part of it is going to be practice. Part of it is going to be finding a better solution for actually having the script in front of me somehow with my limited setup. But that was my main thing that I was like, yeah, I wish I'd performed a bit more smoothly. But what can you do? It's the first effort, everyone. It's not,
That was much better than my first effort of doing videos. Like, in terms of presentation, it was like miles above me.
Well, thanks, Sean. I appreciate that, because as much as I said like Owen Jones was his encounter with these types of people was why I made it. Also, John doing YouTube made me think, well, why can't I do it? And
yeah.
Which is inspiration in its own way. That sounded much more like backhanded than it was meant to be.
If even he can do it, then.
No, I want to be clear that I really enjoy John's work, and it's really good, and you should go watch his videos. I do enjoy them. I watch every single one. Before I retweet them, I make sure.
Just to make sure that I'm not dunking on you in the middle of it.
Yeah, I have to double check. And even if you did, I'd probably still retweet it because they're that good.
I'm just seeing the chat talking about stealing English valor, and I wanted to. I just remembered a time I got into a heated argument with an English person because I told them that black pudding, being from Stornoway, was not an acceptable element of a full English breakfast. If you include black pudding, it becomes a full Scottish. And they got really, really mad at me.
The thing is, I really like black pudding, so I don't care what it is,
black
man.
pudding fucking owns, man.
Yeah,
I was just trying to wind someone up by saying, no, that's not in English. You're not allowed to have the black pudding.
I love policing the boundaries of Englishness. It's just such a powerful bit. Oh man, I really want the black pudding now. See, this is the thing, because I didn't really eat properly before the stream. I'm just thinking about food half the time. So maybe we should power on. So I did the what is aggro, and I know Elijah mentioned this, but the first type of aggro I talked about was crybullying, which, again, bizarrely relevant to who can say. But yeah, crybullying was the first type of... so basically, I had to narrow it down from a list of 10 different types of things that I'd written down in my original notes, because I can't do 10 types of what is aggro, because it would just take forever. And as much as I would have loved to have done a part 2, I feel for a first YouTube video, you have to do it in one part. Which was probably a clever decision. But the first one I did was crybullying, and Elijah, you were mentioning the cybernats shit and the crybullying element of that.
This was a big thing. This was huge. I think it's because Yes supporters, being younger overall, were also more online, and you would get MSPs would get their mentions filled. A bunch of Tory idiots would get people, coming into their replies and disproving them, sharing facts and logic. But the crybullying thing was not as excessive as it is now because, well, for a couple of reasons. One was the way they tried to do it was by just painting anyone who was an independent supporter as being a nationalist, and then trying to use that term nationalist or nationalism as being this catch-all for everything bad, from Hitler to Stalin to, you know, Pol Pot to whatever, which didn't really land, of course, because that's a fucking insane argument to make. And the other reason it doesn't land is because if you are if you see one of these like online like loyalist types, right? People who care enough about the union to actually get involved and engaged and angry about it, they will try to do the crybullying and say, "Oh, these vile cybernaths are abusing me." It doesn't land though, because these kinds of people are so over the top aggressive just because of like where their political development has come from, right? Whether it's a sort of Rangers fan club, or whether it's being immersed in the Queen and the Orange Order from birth, you know, that specific type of political alignment. And I'm trying to be careful to say explicitly that this is not all, you know, non-independent supporters. It's not all no voters. This is if you're into it enough that you're engaging online with people. It doesn't land. You can't do the crybullying thing because you're just not going to be sympathetic enough as a character.
I love the idea of an orangeman marching past a church, tweeting on his phone, these independent supporters are really hurting my feelings on Twitter.
It doesn't work. It's the Scottish far right, and the far right doesn't try the crybullying thing. They're just, you know, outwardly aggressive. Yeah. So the centrists, usually from like more English commentators, I would be so sad if you left. I'd be so sad if the country left. It would make me so sad. Why don't you stay and let's fix everything together? Like, motherfucker, we've tried. It's usually that. You get your Andrew Neils. He tries it sometimes. He'll come out with, you know, some bullshit graph about economic development, and then he'll get a bunch of people going, here's an article that disproves you completely, and then he'll do another tweet about how the vile cybernats are, you know,
the hated cybernats have returned.
But Andrew Neil's not someone you would really associate with that kind of, you know, centrist, melty crybullying thing, right?
Yeah.
The Lib Dems will do it sometimes, but it's not really. I think what happens is there's an underlying attitude of chauvinism that is very hard to hide when English unionists are talking about, you know, or people based in England are talking about the Scottish issue. And it doesn't really help that kind of image that they're trying to put out. It's too hard to disguise. They end up being too dismissive, too patronizing, too chauvinistic. It doesn't really work. But they really tried to make it a thing. They tried to make the vile cybernats was the precursor to the jackbooted thugs of the Corbynite branch.
The Corbyn supporters marching into marginals with their Slipknot t-shirts and their long hair. That was actually a description in from a aggro-centrist Twitter account, and I was like, that sounds familiar. I can't be sure it is me, but
you don't want social policies, you want psychosocial policies.
That's right. That's exactly
it's a very aggro-centrist thing to basically get all their cultural reference points off like what's on sale for like £3 or £5 in FOP. So it tends to be like cultural reference points from 10 years before. Like just they basically buy their whole personality off of like 3 for 2 deals in HMV. It's very sad.
It's why I find it so strange that it probably explains why they're so on top of like the 2000s metal scene in pop punk. Like when they're making these references, they're like, yeah, the Slipknot shirts. I'm like, yeah, I have the Slipknot shirt because I saw them at Download and it's a comfortable shirt. Like it's literally not because I like listen to Slipknot much anymore.
Why then are they not talking about the pigeon detectives? All these Corbynite pigeon detective fans.
But yeah, I love all of the caricatures that they construct. I wish I could do like a sort of maybe another video where I do like the centrist caricature types video, because they're all incredibly funny. And also, Mark, you shouldn't say that. Mick wrote for them. Yeah, no offense to Mick Wright, friend of the stream, lovely bloke. We shouldn't be dunking on people who write for Q, or who wrote for Q, I suppose. They don't do it anymore. Yeah, but the Crybullying thing, the smaller account dunked on me, therefore I am a small bean, multi-tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands follower account. We saw a lot of that recently, even. Like, it's just...
I think that the Crybullying thing and like the whole civility politics thing is like a further extension of that politics suddenly affecting you type thing. So Twitter is suddenly bringing politics to people's like face. Suddenly people are being told that your policies have killed people and are hurting people every day, and people are like, oh, this is really uncivil of people to bring up that the policies of the government I continue to laud have been hugely destructive and have killed people. I don't like that, so that's what's uncivil, not the policies themselves.
We have this well documented in meme lore now from that picture of Leslie Knope doing the face and said, "You better be nice to me or I won't vote for healthcare." All the Bernie Sanders supporters, the Bernie bros are awful. How dare they be rude to me just for saying that poor people should die?
And the thing with like Twitter being politics, happening to you, it's optional. Like, you can log off. Like, that's the thing. That's one of the funny things about like people who choose to get incredibly mad about what's happening online is you could just switch off your phone, watch something on Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever,
Listen to Tyler, the Creator. How is far left bullying even real? Just turn off your phone. Just walk away from the screen.
Yeah, like...
And otherwise, it's just that Sean tweet, I'm being brigaded again by the vile trolls just for provoking them with deliberate insults and lies.
That's just my whole fucking life on Twitter right now. Like, it's just like me responding to someone and people getting angry at me, and I'm like, yeah, like, all right, fine. I will say that I was shown some screenshots of people talking about me, and they're acting like I was a collective trauma to them. Like, just like, oh yeah, I've seen that guy. He fucking owned me really bad. I was like, guys, you don't need to admit it. I know. Like, I'm aware. I remember every owning. I never forget.
It's the same playbook, right? It's exactly like when Bernie raised his voice, he reminded me of the time my boyfriend smoked 3 joints and threw a crock pot at the wall. That's why I can't vote for Medicare for all.
The voice killed me. The voice work on this stream has been off the charts. You guys didn't hear my voices before we came on. Like,
as usual, there's a drill tweet about that was like, I cannot in good conscience condone a Sanders presidency because I once vividly imagined him walking around twirling a pistol.
Drill is the prophet. Like, it's the canon of Twitter at this point. But yeah, so we did the Crybullying thing. Then it was obsessive anti-left content, because the core thing here was these people, you'd think if you were a centrist, right? And centrists like to define themselves, or as I said, they define themselves against both extremes. But it's weird, these particular types of people just particularly go after the left. The left punching, or the fishhook theory, or, whatever you like, right? However you choose to depict it. And I mentioned the particularly bad tweet that someone did, where someone decided to basically make fun of Jeremy Corbyn for getting spat at, which is like, well, crying about civility and so on, and we're doing jokes about this during a pandemic, But yeah.
This is... Sorry.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, this is where it gets a little more serious. And if you have done any level of reading into the history of like far left movements and the history of burgeoning fascist movements, like in Europe, like around the world, I think the Jakarta Method is a recent book that's come out that is very good on this topic.
I will be reviewing it for the stream shortly.
Yeah, I haven't read it yet. I'm interested to find, but yeah, I mean, like, you know, how the Basque ETA was counteracted by a far right movement that included, you know, high ranking military officials and then like extreme the Spanish far right. It's just fishhook theory, man. It's real, right? The center is never the center. It's just a fake veneer of acceptability for what is ultimately going to be how liberalism or neoliberalism defends itself when the crises that are inherent to its existence become too tenuous and too tense and too strainful to deal with, which is fascism. And this is a development of it. This is getting there. These people aren't being inconsistent with the history of their belief system or their ideology. This is what they do. This is what they will do. The anti-communist aspect is a fundamental part of how liberalism develops over history. Is my take. Because I don't consider liberalism and fascism to be two separate entities. I think one is a development of the other.
I know there was. How many of us have seen? I think we all probably would have seen it. But like Marine Le Pen getting outflanked to the right by the French Interior Minister. I don't want to get that wrong, but it's a minister in Macron's government, and her face is just like, wait, I can look reasonable now.
Break this one. What the fuck? Yeah, it's
It was. I watched that and I was like, oh, that's not good. That doesn't feel good, folks.
And then it's going to be, last time around it was vote for Macron so the Fash don't get in. This time it'll be vote for Le Pen so the Fash don't get in. They're just going to flip it on its head. It'll be great. You know, like, the fuck do you do?
I think a mutual of mine made the point that, like, well, why would Muslims in France feel more threatened by Le Pen than Macron based off that? And I'm like, I can honestly tell you. Like,
she was pretty clear, explicitly said, I believe in freedom of religion. That's an important French value.
Yeah.
And the guy was like, you don't have any problems with worshipping. You are soft on Muslims. And well, I mean, there you go. Trump's vote share in minority populations increased in last year's election. It was higher than it was the first time around. People don't talk about this. Why did that happen? Because liberalism doesn't offer a viable anti-racist front, and people can tell. People can listen to your words.
People will believe their lying eyes, I think is, you know, So I wonder if John has some thoughts on the idea of liberalism and fascism being connected in that way. Just because I'm not a political scientist, and John might know how to talk about this in a way that's less clumsy than me.
I don't have much more to add about. On top of what Elijah said, I basically agree with what he was saying there. Like, the reason that they'll attack the left over the right is because the left is a distinct ideology, whereas the right is just a continuation of their own perspectives. It's not a threat to their positions. For the people who are who have the politicians, the media class, the right isn't a threat to their class position, but the left, in a very real way, is. So they'll always attack the left, and they'll attack the right once the left is no longer an issue to be attacked, because they need some sort of legitimacy for why they're there. Like, the Guardian needs people to say, oh, thanks for the Guardian for still being there to fight against the right. But as soon as there's a left, they'll be like, well, fuck the left. Like, that's going to hurt us if the left gets taken off.
I think I pretty much said exactly that in the video, where I was like, one of my hypotheses about why these people are the way they are is they want the legitimacy of being the least bad option, which, you know, is fine, I guess. It's just a terrible way to form your politics. And you mentioned, I think I mentioned in this section, like, you know, it's class interest, it's you know, prestige, it's position, it's all of these other things that are threatened by the left. I kind of made that point in the Blairite section in the previous bit, which was like, these people thought they were entitled to positions in the Labour Party that would, you know, not necessarily pay, but afford influence. And, you know, so, yeah. Geraint, do you want to jump in with anything? Because I know we've been ignoring you, basically, even though we have you here.
No, not really.
He's just here for flavour and dunking, basically.
Yeah.
The dunking section. All right. What was my next section? The conspiracy theory section. Okay, so Geraint, this is all you.
There we go.
You will remember all of the conspiracy
I knew I was
theories.
conserving my energy for something.
And I will not remember any of the conspiracy theories. I didn't link in the description. So some people DM me like, "Hey, you didn't link to this thing you said you'd link to in the description." It's the Waplington Files. I don't know I forget who the author is. It might well have been Geraint. I don't know.
It was a mysterious Mr. C. Lion who might actually have been me. Yeah.
Who can say? But yeah, I mentioned my favorite conspiracy theory, which was the Seamus Milne, puppet master controlling Corbyn, and conspiracy theory. That was one of my favorite ones, just because it gave us like the Mike Gibbs, Mr. Seamus Milne bit, But yeah, Geraint, do you remember any particularly interesting conspiracy theories that it might be worth talking about?
I remember quite a lot. I mean, other than the ones that I put in that article, some of the most entertaining ones, there was one just not that long after that, where it came up in some interview in passing or something, or it might have been like one of Corbyn's staff or colleagues or something said like, "Oh yeah, he's in good shape. He goes for he goes jogging most nights for a couple of miles or something like that." It was like basically he's in good shape for his age. He gets regular exercise for his age, and you can see his fitness levels are quite good compared with a lot of MPs the same age or younger. And people went mad. People, particularly one Paul Richards, a very bald in both a literal and spiritual sense. He's just one of those people who's been hanging around the Labour right for like 2 decades and failing to get any further than being like a councillor or something. Cheerleading all the absolute worst bastards. And he decided that this, like Jeremy Corbyn claiming he goes for a moderate length jog regularly, was directly equivalent to like North Korean leaders saying, "I played golf for the first time yesterday and got 12 hole-in-ones and broke the course record."
Oh my god!
And they were doing a full-on like Corbyn jogging truther, like, "Oh yeah, of course he goes jogging all the time, doesn't he? Yeah, and then he plays for Man United on the weekend," and like, what? Like, he's literally just getting some exercise,
He's a relatively fit for his age man getting a bit of exercise. It's fine.
Yeah. You see people his age going for jogs fairly regularly if you live near a park, It's but the guy was like really dedicated to it and was properly like, no, this is just ridiculous, like myth making,
I want everyone to know if I ever go for a jog, it is myth making because I will never do that.
Yeah. for loads of us who are supporters, it would be absolutely ridiculous if we claimed it, but not for him. There's some other ones as well. One that I couldn't find the tweet about it, so I didn't put it in the article as well. But Matt Zarb-Cousin came to prominence quite quickly towards the end of his time working for Corbyn, because a lot of the press kind of erroneously tried to report that he'd been like forced out or quit because he didn't like Corbyn or something. And he challenged that, but also because he wasn't working for Corbyn anymore, he became a bit more aggro again because he was able to without getting anyone else in trouble. So they all hated him and were trying to find ways of attacking him. And one of the ways they found to attack him was to claim that he was secretly like 51 years old or something like that. I can't remember the exact amount, but there was a claim that he was like 20 years older than he was. And there was no like evidence provided or anything. It's just like fucking Matt Zarb-Cousin. He's like 50 and he tries to talk like he's one of the youth or something.
If he is 50, fair play. Like, he looks good.
Nothing to it whatsoever. But of course, we all immediately pretended it was true.
A friend of the stream, Matt Zarb-Cousin. Who knows? He might return. We might see if we can get him back and make him watch me play Crusader Kings 3 again.
I'm big fans of the parallel development between Brianna Joy Gray and Matt Zarb-Cousin. As I think they had the same job as well,
pretty much, yeah.
Stand respectively, and then as soon as it was over, his fucking gloves off. Fuckers.
Yeah,
it was great.
We do like Matt Matt Zarb-Cousin on the stream, and knowing Seamus Milne is 61, I made that point in the video.
Yeah.
Like, wow. I mean, he looks...
Just to say a quick congrats to Matt as well. With him being in his 80s, he's just about to get his second dose of the vaccine. So,
can we get some golden tonties in the chat for Matt, who's of course getting his vaccine because of Tony Blair's rare interventions?
He's only just lost his hair as well. That's quite impressive.
Oh, I loved when Matt shaved his head, and it just he knew what he was doing. It was
he confronted the baldness. It was admirable.
It was a question we asked him on stream. I felt really bad because the chat kept asking it. I was like, Matt, why did you shave your head? And he was like, well, my partner doesn't mind, so what can you do? I'm like, all right then, that was the most hostile question that the chat kept asking, and I felt bad about asking it because I was like, it was meant to be a nice chat about lots of stuff, but bald but not bald. Yeah, exactly. I might do a video where I explain the concept of political baldness. We need a shit posting YouTuber. I did the harassment of just harassment and bullying section basically. I wrote it as harassment in the horrible square that I had hovering near my head that looked terrible.
Just on the conspiracy theory point and the one about Bastani's PhD, I thought that was I think that is a really interesting example of ideology at work, because it's the idea that Bastani doesn't really have a PhD is, I think, really linked to how neoliberalism has this fetishization of technocracy and of people who have the right qualifications to get into certain positions. But as soon as you've got someone who goes against the particular ideology that you're espousing, that people who have these qualifications and are in these positions should espouse, suddenly you've got to go, well, surely they must not really have that qualification. It must be fake, can't really be qualified if you don't agree with me, the smart person in the room. So
I enjoyed that they particularly focused on passing without corrections. I did there was a whole section of this, and I found the most galaxy brain image I could for the section title, and I think it was multiple galaxies.
It's like the right wingers who keep trying to prove that Martin Luther King plagiarized his doctoral thesis. It's the same energy.
Yeah.
Oh, this is another one, by the way, on the topic of Bastani PhD. I've just remembered a different aggro-centrist, a music journalist, in fact, a guy called Joe Muggs.
That's not a real name. I'm sorry. Hold on. No one is called Joe Muggs. I'm sorry.
No, he really is called Joe Muggs. But
he wants in his last name.
Right?
Oh, don't worry. Go ahead, Grant. Sorry.
He once genuinely accused me of having a PhD, the exact reverse of the Bastani trutherism. I've done no postgrad. I've just got an undergrad degree and that's it, and not actually even studied for any postgrad stuff. But it's the fucking PhD left are coming for me again. And it was just me calling him a dickhead or something, He'd invented this whole backstory for me that was mostly just complete bollocks.
I wish they'd do that to me so I could pretend I don't just have a master's degree, which is objectively the funniest degree, sadly. I
was tempted to ask him a bit more so I could put it on my CV and maybe use him as a reference,
Yeah. Oh, good lord. Yeah, I guess we can talk about the abuse bullying factor, because the example I mostly talked about was Jess Phillips and Diane Abbott and all of the shit Diane Abbott has to go through, which is in the public. So that was the one I picked to talk about because it's public figures. Everyone knows who the people involved are. Everyone knows the roles of those people. I just used that as my narrative device because it was just simpler for me to do that rather than constantly allude to the various things that I was told by various people about what aggro-centrists get up to in the DMs. It's not good, folks. That's all I will say. It's not good, and it's not all right. It's just, yeah. I don't know if we want to talk about that too much, or just go back to Aaron Bastani PhD trutherism, because that was the next. The next section was my portrait of an aggro-centrist, and it's basically what we've already talked about. It's comfortable people, middle-class people. Gen X is what I guessed, basically, age-wise. But it turns out some of them are quite young. I realised after I published, I was some of these people are way younger than I thought. In their 30s. And I'm like, oh, that's not good. That's not good on any front, really.
The ones in their 30s surely must be the ones who came through like student politics. That's what I would imagine.
Yeah, I feel like that's a thing I probably could have mentioned if I hadn't got like bogged down in the particular portrait, I think, because there is if anyone has ever interacted with anyone into student politics, they're a dickhead. Like, I don't want to sugarcoat it, they're usually a dickhead.
Student
I'm
politics
so glad.
fucking sucks, man.
Yeah, I'm so glad I was too lazy in undergrad to even think about getting involved in student politics, because that, like, fucking hell, that place, it's just a festering bed of toxicity.
I'm glad I was too busy partying. I'm going to be honest.
Yeah, I was just too cool. That was it.
I was fairly involved. I got like mini cancelled at some point because people thought that my presence at a house party was an expression of patriarchy because I'm 2 meters tall and I have large lungs. I'm very loud.
Wait. Are you saying you got height gap discoursed before height gap discourse was a thing? Is that what? What the fuck?
Pretty much. I was, I'm a loud, visible male in a space, and I'm taking up too much. It was a combination of like man-spreading discourse, height gap discourse, like everything. Student politics was. I mean, there were some good times. We did a student newspaper that we wrote ourselves. It lasted for a good year before everyone who was involved with the founding graduated, and then no one else could pick up the slack. We called it the Hammer and Seagull because we're in Aberdeen.
Nice.
Yeah, pretty good. Nice logo. It still has an article that I share every year around November about the cult of the poppy, written by then friend Andrew Dunn, who since has become a published author in Gaelic. But student politics, from what I remember, was it was either this hyper individualistic, walking on eggshells constantly lest you do something cancelable before cancelling was a term, or it was the smarmy Jack Straw, Robbie Travers careerist shite. One guy in an AGM stood up and said that the people who were voting against having a Starbucks on campus were windmill obsessives and wanted to destroy the world so that they could put windmills everywhere.
Hell yeah!
And I thought
Windmill
this was
Joe.
a piss take.
Not for not to save the climate, but because they just love crazy golf.
Yeah. It was great. I thought he was taking the piss, and then I asked around. He's like, "No, he's dead fucking serious. He's convinced that tree huggers are actually windmill huggers, and there's a Scottish government conspiracy to put these big fucking windmills everywhere along the coast."
Has he confused windmills for wind turbines? Is that what I'm like?
Yeah. That's pretty much what's yeah. That was it. But
That's
still,
a pretty embarrassing mistake, I have to say.
It was an incredible way to argue for having a Starbucks on campus, and we were just worried that it would put our local high street independently run cafe out of business that we loved so much. It was just fucking weird, man. Yeah, that was student politics. There was no good aspect of it.
I could feel myself age as we talked about student politics. So, we did talk a bit about the Aaron Bastani PhD truthism, but yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, this was before Jolien. Yes, this was 2012.
Oh my god, 2012, the best year of the UK, as we well know. But yeah, the Aaron Bastani PhD truthism. So the reason I picked that as the example is, well, it was basically the funniest thing I could think of. It was the thing that I could present in the most light-hearted way, because the characters in it are such clowns, basically. And also because a similar thing happened to me, as I mentioned, when a bunch of middle-aged Lib Dems were like, "You can't have read Orwell and Harry Potter because your takes are bad." And I'm like, yeah, dude, like, I have a master's degree in physics. I can read. They questioned whether I was literate, which was very funny. And I'm like,
how do you tweet if you're illiterate?
I know. Like, this is the thing. Like, do I get like text to speech? Do I like speech to text or something? I don't know. I don't know what they thought I was doing. Like getting my partner to tweet on my behalf, maybe.
Like you've got a scribe.
Oh yeah,
just
that's
like Jeremy Corbyn.
I really want to get a Twitter scribe now. applications will be opening next month for Trump is illiterate in tweets. Well, tweeted, yeah. That was a big moment in shitposting history when Trump got just booted off. It's not been the same. The website has been unhinged and unstable since Trump got kicked off. He was holding us together, really.
He was a neutralizing factor. We quite desperately needed him.
Yeah.
A lightning rod.
Yeah, one of my favorite aspects of like the Aaron Bastani PhD truthism isn't just that they were like, you do not have a PhD because you do not agree with me. It was the I'm gonna remark your PhD. This motherfucker was gonna sit and read an entire PhD dissertation and just mark it with red pen.
It's
how. What does it say about your own sense of self that you think that you're qualified to mark someone else's 3-4 years worth of research, something that's been through like peer review from two or three experts in the field, and you're like, I've got my red pen and I'll just fucking mark this.
To the person,
there's this incredible anecdote that I think inspired the character of Barry in Four Lions, where some Britain First guy in prison read the Quran so he could better debate his opponents and accidentally converted himself. And I've just got this vision of like a parallel universe where Jeremy Dunn's actually like followed through on his plans to market, and then like within weeks became like a guy who just yelled about fully automated luxury communism and went to the gym a lot.
The thing is, the thing about him passing without corrections probably means his PhD is good. That was a note John told me to add, because I assume everyone would understand that, but obviously not everyone has done like postgraduate research. So I was like, yes, okay, fine. It means it was good. I concede the point that Bastani's PhD, unlike his book, was very good.
I mean, I haven't done a PhD, but I can guess what that means, you know.
Yeah.
Like passing without correct, like he might have made like an argument that we could all disagree with, but it means that he's made it in a well-evidenced and comprehensive way, and there aren't any obvious gaps in logic. So he didn't need to provide any it doesn't necessarily mean his argument is correct. It just means that it's well evident and
I'm just remembering how many corrections I had for my master's thesis. Oh my god, it was so many. It was a lot of it was just typographical, or this figure was too small, you need to make it bigger, which was a bit awkward because most of my figures were made in paint. Apologies to my supervisor who told me not to do that. So
I avoided that by dropping out of my master's before my thesis and just getting a certificate. Hey. It was in journalism. I have no regrets.
my supervisor was like, "Oh yeah, you should probably use GIMP to make your images," and I was like, "But James, what if I accidentally doxing my supervisor? But what if I did it in Paint and you couldn't tell the difference?" And I got away with it. So until right just now. I'm way too honest on this stream about the nonsense I got up to. I was too lazy to learn GIMP, and now I had to learn GIMP to make t-shirts. So who's the real fool where?
Hoisted in your own petard, there.
That's right. I owned myself, right? Real good.
We turn full circle to Chuckamina chat.
Yeah. I did the does Aggro-Centrism achieve anything section where I was like, yeah, I mean, it depends what you think they want to achieve. Basically, if you think they want to do, centrism as do the centrist policies, whatever they are, they're not very good at it. If you think their whole point was to just stop the left and, get an electoral rejection of the left to happen, yeah, fair enough, they did that. I think they contributed to it. They didn't do it on their own, obviously, but they definitely contributed to it.
Do the aggro-centrists have the same kind of social media organization as, say, for example, the gender criticals or the Nasher crowd?
I think there's an overlap. There's an overlap, I suspect.
Because it's very. I think Katie Montgomery, the Twitter account, tweets a lot about trans rights, gets into it with the GCs. She said that she can't use phrases like, I would kill for something like that, like about an ice cream or whatever, because she'll get mass reported, because they're organized, because they have their group chats and their forums and their outside of Twitters. It doesn't seem like the aggro-centrists are doing anything like that. And I wonder if it's because they don't think they should have to, right? Again, coming back to the entitlement and the grievance. right? They shouldn't need to organize to stake out internet territory. It should just be the norm. All these accounts with hammers and sickles and their usernames should be just being banned normally because that's the normal thing that you do. But they don't seem to be that organized.
I've never thought about how organized they are or not, actually. Maybe Geraint knows something about it. I don't know. I'd never thought about it too much.
Not specifically the TERFs, although I'd put everything I own on there being like both a secret boutique TERF DM group and most of them having alts. But did stumble across something recently in terms of how some of the sort of QC Twitter set managed to get people banned for weird reasons. And it looked like they'd found it might be something similar with the TERFs, or it might be more organized among themselves, but they seem to have found a group for like coordinated reporting of bigots on Twitter. It seems like it had been set up originally in good faith to get sort of Nazis banned, the sort of people whose tweets might be blocked if you were accessing Twitter from Germany, for example. And they had like a little document that they would put tweets in, and then they'd all mass report it to get these people kicked off. And it seemed like this had been kind of infiltrated by like very bald man who bombards the Labour Party with tens of thousands of complaints Twitter, and they would just like sneaking in like left-wing Jews in there to get them banned. So I'm wondering if there's something similar, either infiltrated like that or sort of set up as a sort of coordinated, probably off-site mass reporting sort of setup. Because they really do go for people. I know Jack from Reel Politik got some of the worst hassle I'd ever seen because he wouldn't back down from saying that trans women were women and trans men were men when challenged with something. I think they, within hours, they'd like reported him to his university at the time, reported him to like his local Labour group and things like this. Really quite full on.
Yeah. Just trying
to... There's something weird about Twitter as a battleground, for like narrative control. And it is irritating because the same kind of thing always comes back in. I don't think the left, which has numerous Twitter accounts, there's a big Twitter presence, right? I don't think we have a way of fighting back to the way that the sort of Nasher crowd do. And maybe it's just because we don't have the money to like, buy botnets and automated responses. But we could probably also weaponize it effectively. We just don't. Because
I think we're also not... Yeah, sorry. I think we're also not willing to go to the lengths that they do. I think basically we would maybe see one of them behaving like an absolute dickhead or a danger or doxing people, and we'd be like, let's all get this guy reported. Whereas they do it like systematically, both with someone who's being very offensive and with someone who said you are bald to one of their friends 6 months ago. They to them, everyone that isn't on their side is the enemy that must be destroyed.
It's better adjusted.
Like what? Oh no! The worst possible timing. Oh dear. Okay, how much libel happened while I was gone?
Not that much. My mum just came in to ask me for dinner.
You won't believe what Oz was saying in the chat.
Sorry, John. It's your turn.
I was just saying, like, we're all pretty much brain poisoned from Twitter to like an extent. Like, I think we can all admit that.
Yeah.
But none of us have anything on any of like the TERF posters or like any of those Aggro-Centrism posters who are like, they're like, they are the machine at this point. They've not just put back into the matrix, they've become the matrix. They're fucking like online. So it takes like that degree of think like get to immediately like mention say like saying Mr. Kill and then match report them. That takes like huge amount of time that I'm not willing to put into Twitter. I've got other things to do.
Yeah, I've got work, man. I've got streams to do. You know,
I think
they also never had to run the gauntlet, right? Like I cut my teeth and I honed my posting chops on the Ruthless forums and Something Awful. You know,
I feel like a lot of us have that in common, maybe.
I remember people giving you shit in the Ray parlor. I remember those days well. It was a brutal environment.
Yeah, and you learn and you grow and you become a more hardened poster for it. Oh, the Ray parlor, man, that was great.
You become a good poster.
Renamed it. They eventually renamed the Ray Parlor, which was the football. So it was named after Ray Parlor, a football person. They renamed it to the Johan Kebab because someone had mispronounced Johan Kebab on Sky Sports or something, and it was Johan Kebab, which was a very anyway. Yeah, posting chops. You have to build them, or you'll go nuts. Imagine being exposed with no prior experience to the immensity that is Twitter and Facebook. It'll break you.
Yeah. Also, Juliet pointing out that it was Joe Kinnear who mispronounced.
Yes. Yeah, he was a legend. There's an interview with Joe Kinnear where he gets very angry at a journalist. That is one of the funniest things you'll ever listen to. He just he basically goes, "Which one of you is this guy's name?" It was some guy from the Mirror, and then he just goes, "Oh, you're a," and then just launches into like a this is like the official Premier League press conference.
Yeah,
but just coming back briefly to like the TERFs as well, I think FFF raises a good point when he compares it with like Scientologists and fair game, and it sort of reminded me like the thing with like online gender critical communities and so on. You don't see many what you'd call moderate TERFs, where it's like, yes, I have this political position. It's one of my 20 political positions that I sometimes tweet about or post about. For a lot of them, like, there are a few that fall into that, but most of them, like, that quite quickly becomes like their consuming main cause, you know? And
it's a cult.
Yeah. It becomes all they talk about. They end up cutting out or falling out with people who disagree with them in their real life and online, and therefore talking more and more to fellow TERFs because they accept them and they just become radicalized. I had one former follower on Twitter, former mutual, who went from what generally in all sorts of other areas was sort of quite sound, sort of mainstream Corbynite, and they went from like never mentioning trans issues whatsoever to like once or twice retweeting transphobic writer Glosswitch on like non-trans issues, to then within weeks being like a sort of pedantic, I'm just asking questions troll towards trans activists, to then becoming like a full-on transphobe. And this all happened in the space of about 2.5 months. It was disturbing, you know?
Yeah.
See how quickly you can go from not giving a shit about an issue to being like full-on rabid one extreme of it.
I feel like it kind of relates to some of this Aggro-Centrism stuff as well, because I feel like a lot of these people broadly were at least somewhat normal once upon a time and became increasingly normal in the bad sense really quickly. And really, I wanted to say we're kind of talking about the thing that I couldn't talk about in the in the outro, which was like what to do about how to fight back, because my whole thing was we should just laugh at these people. That was my entire like operating thesis in the video, which was like it's fine to just laugh at them. Like I couldn't really think of any way to sign off that wouldn't have just come off as really flat. I also just noticed like my laundry's hanging in the background of the video. So yeah, you got to see what pants I wear, so everyone can be happy about that. But yeah, other than that, like I think the video conversation's done, and there is like a question that I find interesting from Farage's fucked face. I'm gonna say the full thing, which is, will any aggro-centrists ever get sued for slander/libel, and if so, which one do you think will get taken to court? No, I don't think anyone's going to sue them. I think they're careful enough to sort of they know where that line is, and they won't cross it.
I don't know. I think Rachel Riley was pretty close there. I think the issue with being sued is one about just who has the like material capability to sue someone. who's got the money and time to do that. But I think they are getting pretty, like, that Rachel Riley tweet about Bastani was pretty much libelous. Like that was way over a line, any sort of line.
Yeah. I'm not sure who it will be. And like, I think a lot of left-wingers just don't have the means to sue, like, even if they wanted to, even if you crowdfund, like, if they have, like, a lawyer on retainer who just does it for free for them, like, fuck, you're fucked. You're shit out of luck, man. Like,
I think they'll overplay their hand at some point, but whether that'll be in a legal arena or just in general public opinion, or, you know, how narratives develop, I think probably the latter. I think there is that if you look at the overlap between the kind of cult-like groups that, you know, sort of pre-existed and how susceptible to infiltration by them, people who were uncomfortable with Corbyn are. Because how does it start? It starts with, I don't want higher taxes, but I know that I can't say that explicitly because that's going to make me look like an asshole. So you have to invent a moral excuse for it, a moral cover. And then you start engaging politically based on a lie, based on a misrepresentation of yourself and your beliefs. And that is primed territory for being indoctrinated, right? For being drawn into a cult. And you can see the overlap between all these cult-like behaviors, like the Nasher crowd and the TERF crowd, and they're very good at recognizing a potential recruit and then zeroing in, and they have practiced, rehearsed ways of presenting a narrative and a worldview that makes sense to someone who's not very well versed in identifying these things and defending against them. So we do have to, at some point, there's a line that you draw between, are these normal people who are just behaving in an insane way because of group dynamics or because of overall cultural trends? Or is this someone who has been drawn into a deliberately radicalizing cult? And that affects how you deal with it, right? This is do you just laugh at them, or do you have to learn about de-radicalization, you know, about unbrainwashing someone? And it's fucking difficult. To an extent, Twitter makes us overthink things because it's not the world. But
and yet, lots of journalists will lose their mind about it. So
yeah,
it becomes the world.
Yeah, Twitter's a very powerful force for a few reasons, just a few, but one of them is that the people who do dictate the sort of gates of discussion, the avenues of cultural narratives, do use it, and they do believe what you say. So if you fuck with the algorithm, like Keir Starmer's going to resign tomorrow,
Starmer quits, baby, hell yeah!
It's a demonstration of potential agitprop power, right? In an algorithmic social media context, a subversion of the natural order of cultural narrative hegemony, if you will.
Like there is definitely like a degree to which like we can get zeroed in and talking just about like fucking Twitter and ultimately like or who are these accounts that do stupid weird shit, and like how you react to them doesn't really matter unless you're personal friends with someone who's like that. So, like, then you're talking about de-radicalization. But otherwise, the way to combat that sort of stuff is just broader societal forces that work to change discourse. That like you're not going to be able to change them on Twitter. You're not going to engage with one of these centrists, aggro-centrists on Twitter, and then like deconvert them. Like that's just not going to happen.
Or even engage with them in your Twitch chat. As the case may be.
In terms of like of libel action, I think the funniest would be. I can't remember if this is exactly right, so don't quote me, but I'm fairly certain it is against legal practice to threaten to use your position as a lawyer or as a QC to enact some sort of revenge. I think that is against legal practice in England, at least. So if one of the QCs overplayed their hand that way, that would just be so funny. Like,
oh god,
is that bringing the practice into disrepute or something like that?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, you'd think they'd have crossed that line with the "Who is Nate Buffet" discourse, because like, what the fuck was that? Like, who is Nate Buffet? A person who I know. Like,
Being Napathy.
oh god, that was one of the most ridiculous discourses in the ridiculous discourse. Like, can't believe the discourse is still escalating. It's February, everyone. It's not even like mid 2021. It is February, and the banter timeline is just expanding and consuming us all. Oh dear.
Yeah, you remember that graph back at the start of the pandemic, tracking the people who were on universal credit, and you saw it slowly expand out as the line got higher and higher and higher. That can be transposed into the discourse line. It's just zooming out and just going up and up and up and up and up.
Yeah. Oh, good lord. Like, yeah. But I'm not sure who's getting sued or when or if. I don't know. I feel like they'll get away with that for a lot of other reasons. And also, yeah, I just laugh, as has been demonstrated, I just laugh in the face of these people because what can you do, man? There's no no point in new QC just dropped. Oh dear. Yes, these people are real. I don't know how to explain this to you all. I didn't make a video about fake people. That would have been amazing. I'm not.
I remember.
Oh, sorry.
So he's probably like the least worst QC now, like Mr. Jolyon Moore. But my first encounter with him was when he was boasting that he'd put loads of money on Owen Smith to win, and he was going to like clean up and presumably buy a third windmill, like to own the left. He was really kind of gloating and sneering, and loads of us were like taking the piss out of him. And he was like saying to me that he had like more working class credentials.
Oh.
And
no.
like your name, like I've never heard of you before today, but your name is Jolyon Morm QC, and every constituent part of that tells me that you're lying.
He completely owned that fox, though. So,
yeah, I'm glad he blocked me rather than like fuck with me further.
I have him muted.
Probably could have either killed me or had me killed.
Yeah. I think we'll probably wrap it up there because otherwise we're going to get into beef chat, and we saved that for behind the scenes. We'll do beef chat between us, who are, if anyone wants to stick around after. But I think the stream part of this is going to wrap up. But before I let my guests sort of remind you who they are, you should definitely drop a follow to this stream and subscribe because it annoys people. There are group chats that have my name in them, for real. You should definitely follow if you haven't before. The next stream is the Valentine's Day special where I will be playing a dating sim, which but the trick is that I'm trying to date pigeons. I don't know. It's a pretty fun game, I guess. So you should definitely hang out for that one. Otherwise, I'm going to hand it off to the guests to let you know what they do and where you can find them. So we'll go from Geraint round. So Geraint, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I obviously the main thing I do is the Reel Politik podcast. You can find us mostly at soundcloud.com/Reel Politik podcast. Also follow myself at Wariotifo, our podcast account, which is mainly just Jack, at RP Corp International, which I'll put in the chat in a minute because it's a weird spelling. And that's about it, really, isn't it? Yeah. Okay.
Not a lot going on, but John.
You should subscribe to my YouTube channel. It's John Duncan. My last video was on Marxism and human rights, and the next one's about patriotism and the far right, with focus on America and British flag shagging. So follow for that.
That's gonna rule. Elijah, what are all your things? Your many things.
Follow me at Klezmer Rouge on Twitter. I am a music teacher online. If you're interested in any of that, give us a shout. I'm one of the many co-hosts of Podcasting is Praxis. You can find the podcast at PraxisCast on Twitter, and you can search for it on Podbean, I guess, or wherever you listen to podcasts, because we have it everywhere pretty much. And coming out this week is the new, after a hiatus, episode of The Bottle Cap Preachers, a podcast where people who don't listen People who don't listen to pop music listen to pop music and react to it and give their opinions. And I was delighted to have Sinan guest on this episode this week. So as soon as I can get my shit together and edit the fucker, it'll be out and available for you. So that's The Bottle Cap Preachers, everyone.
And my reaction will surprise you, because actually I think it was both our reactions will surprise people, because we were in a very particular mindset for that. We were in the intro, but I don't know if you'll leave that in. But like, everyone will get why we talk about things in a particular way.
It's a good episode. All right. Yeah. The chart toppers were interesting this week.
Yeah.
So
anyway, guys, I'm gonna say goodnight to you all. I have a lot of beef to go through in my head, and tomorrow's my one day off, and so I have to go food shopping. So I need to actually leave. So good night, everyone. If you haven't followed, drop a follow. Otherwise, I'll catch you all on Sunday from 1 p.m. Bye bye.
Cheers, everyone.
See you later.
Bye.